Vera Soltari stared at her reflection in the crystalline mirror, watching as her engineered beauty shifted like quicksilver. Her iridescent skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns, another gift from the Genetic Council of Kalon Prime. The modifications had made her the perfect Huntress, a living weapon designed to secure humanity's genetic material for her dying world. She pressed her palm against the cold glass, watching as her appearance automatically adjusted to match the ideal mate profile of her target. Auburn hair lengthened and curled, eyes shifted to a deep emerald, cheekbones subtly realigned themselves. Every change was calculated to appeal to Yarrick Voss's documented preferences. Target confirmation required, the ship's AI chimed. Yarrick Voss, age 34. Net worth, 89.7 billion credits. Founder of Quantum Cortex Industries. Known for reclusive behavior and resistance to traditional social engineering. Vera's lips curled into a bitter smile. Resistance was an understatement. 3 corporate spies and 2 professional seductresses had already failed to penetrate Voss's inner circle. None of them had her advantages, though. None of them could release targeted pheromones that bypassed conscious thought, or modulate their vocal frequencies to induce trust and attraction. The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to human detection. As she prepared for landing, Vera reviewed her mission parameters one final time. Secure viable genetic material from the target. Assess potential for ongoing extraction. Eliminate if compromised. Simple. Clinical. Just like the hundreds of other missions she'd completed for the dying world of Kalon Prime. Their poisoned atmosphere had rendered natural reproduction impossible generations ago. Without fresh genetic material to stabilize their degrading DNA, her species faced extinction within decades. The Council's solution? Send their most beautiful daughters, enhanced beyond human limits, to seduce Earth's elite. Gather their seed. Create hybrids strong enough to survive Kalon's toxic skies. It was survival, they said. Necessity. Holy duty. Vera touched the small scar at the base of her skull, the physical reminder of her conditioning. The neural implant ensured her loyalty, or at least her compliance. She couldn't directly disobey the Council, but that didn't stop the guilt that plagued her after each successful hunt. The ship touched down in a private landing zone outside Seattle. Rain pelted the windows, providing perfect cover for her arrival. According to intelligence, Voss would be attending a private tech symposium tonight, one of his rare public appearances. Vera donned a dress of shifting midnight blue, designed to emphasize her engineered perfection while appearing effortlessly elegant. The fabric contained millions of microscopic sensors, feeding her real-time data about her target's physiological responses. Heart rate, pupil dilation, microexpressions, nothing would escape her analysis. The symposium was being held in an restored Victorian mansion, all gleaming wood and antique splendor. Vera circulated through the crowd, her enhanced senses scanning for her quarry. She didn't need to search long. Yarrick Voss commanded attention despite his obvious desire to avoid it. Tall and lean, with sharp features and calculating gray eyes, he stood slightly apart from the discussing executives and investors. His dark suit was impeccably tailored but understated, and he nursed a glass of water rather than champagne. Vera adjusted her pheromone output and approached from his peripheral vision. The trick was to appear coincidental, not targeted. She paused near a display of quantum processor designs, allowing her presence to register gradually. Fascinating work, she murmured, pitching her voice to carry just far enough. The neural pathway integration is particularly elegant. Voss turned slightly, his gaze sharp but unrevealing. You have experience with quantum architecture? Enough to appreciate true innovation. Vera smiled, allowing just a hint of her natural bioluminescence to enhance her features. Though I suspect the public specs only hint at the real breakthroughs. His eyes narrowed fractionally. The sensors in her dress reported elevated heart rate, but not the pattern she expected. This wasn't attraction, it was alertness. Warning signals flared in her neural implant. Indeed. Voss took a deliberate sip of water. Though I find the biological applications even more intriguing. Particularly regarding genetic optimization. Vera's own heart rate spiked. She maintained her pleasant expression through iron discipline. Oh. For instance, he continued casually, the way certain sequences can be modified to enhance pheromone production, or enable reactive pigmentation of skin cells. His gray eyes met hers directly. Fascinating capabilities. Assuming, of course, one had access to sufficiently advanced alien technology. The word hung between them like a drawn blade. Alien. He knew. Impossible, but undeniable. I don't believe we've been properly introduced, Voss said softly. But then, I already know who you are, Huntress Soltari. Shall we discuss this somewhere more private? I have a proposition that might interest your counsel. Vera's implant screamed danger, but beneath it, another sensation bloomed. Hope. Interest. A chance for something beyond the endless hunt. She inclined her head fractionally. Lead the way, Mr. Voss. As she followed him away from the crowd, Vera sensed she was walking into either salvation or destruction. Perhaps, she mused darkly, they were the same thing. Voss's private office occupied the mansion's entire east wing. As the doors sealed behind them, Vera noticed the subtle shimmer of an electromagnetic containment field activating. Her escape routes were effectively cut off. Don't worry, Voss said, noting her tension. It's just for privacy. What I'm about to show you would cause quite a stir in both our worlds. He pressed his palm against a seemingly solid wall, revealing a hidden laboratory that would have put most research facilities to shame. The centerpiece was a familiar sight that made Vera's blood run cold, the wreckage of a Kalon probe. She'd assumed it had been destroyed during atmospheric entry. Found this about 6 years ago, Voss explained, running his fingers along the probe's scarred surface. Took me 2 years just to crack the basic encryption. Another 3 to understand your genetic engineering technology. Fascinating stuff, especially the parts about your species degrading DNA. Vera's implant throbbed. If you've known about us all this time, why haven't I exposed you? Voss smiled thinly. Because there's something much bigger at play. Your council isn't the only group interested in hybrid genetics. Ever heard of the Crimson Helix? The name triggered a cascade of restricted memories. The Intergalactic Crime Syndicate? They're supposed to be a myth. Very real, and very interested in both human and Kalon DNA. Voss activated a holographic display, showing a complex network of shell companies and hidden facilities. They've infiltrated both our worlds. That degrading atmosphere on Kalon Prime? Not natural. They engineered it, testing a genetic weapon. Vera's perfect features twisted in disbelief. Impossible. Our historical records are altered. Here. He handed her a data crystal. Evidence compiled from your own probe's backup archives. The Crimson Helix wanted to force your species into desperation, make you seek out human DNA. But not for survival, for weapons development. Her implant fired again, this time with direct orders: eliminate target. Destroy evidence. Return immediately. Vera staggered, fighting the command. The Council, they're working with the Syndicate? Some of them. Others are just pawns. Voss steadied her with surprisingly gentle hands. I have a complete DNA archive, thousands of compatible human samples, legally obtained. Enough to save your people without turning them into weapons. Help me expose the Syndicate, and it's yours. The implant's demands grew stronger. Vera's engineered nails lengthened into deadly points, a automatic response to threat. Why should I trust you? Because I could have turned you in months ago. Because I've spent years trying to find a way to help both our species. His gray eyes held hers. And because in about 30 seconds, your rival Zyra will burst through that door trying to kill us both. On cue, alarms blared. Security feeds showed a feminine figure approaching, her beauty as artificial as Vera's own, but twisted by combat augmentations. The council sent her to clean up their mess, Voss explained quickly. Are you with me? Vera had seconds to decide. The implant demanded blood. Duty demanded obedience. But something deeper, something they hadn't managed to engineer out of her, demanded truth. She retracted her claws. What's the plan? First, we need to. Voss was cut off by an explosion that shook the mansion's foundations. Through the smoke strode Zyra, her engineered beauty warped by rage and combat stims. Traitor, she snarled at Vera. The council gave you everything. They gave me lies, Vera replied, shifting into a fighting stance. Her dress rippled, hardening into combat armor. Stand down, Zyra. There's more happening here than you know. I know enough. Zyra's arm transformed into a particle cannon. The council's orders are absolute. The hunt must continue. The blast would have vaporized them both if Voss hadn't activated emergency shields. As energy splashed harmlessly around them, he pulled Vera toward a hidden exit. My ship's in the sub-basement, he shouted over the chaos. We need to reach the Mars colony. There's someone there who can remove your implant. Another blast rocked the building. Vera glanced back at Zyra, seeing her own past reflected in those augmented eyes. How many others were there like them? How many hunters and hunted, all dancing to the Syndicate's tune? The council will never stop hunting us, she warned as they ran. Voss's smile was fierce. Good thing I like a challenge. Ever wonder why I stayed off the grid all these years? Being hard to find is about to come in very handy. They reached his ship as the mansion began to collapse. As they broke atmosphere, Vera watched her old life burn away behind them. The hunt had changed. Now she was both predator and prey, racing toward truth instead of conquest. In the darkness between worlds, her engineered beauty flickered like dying stars, and for the first time, she wondered who she might become when all the lies fell away. The Mars colony sprawled beneath its massive dome like a web of stolen dreams. Here, in humanity's first true off-world settlement, the lines between species blurred. Vera watched from their hiding place as a Centaurian crystal merchant haggled with a human trader, their breath masks marking them as equals in the thin Martian atmosphere. Welcome to New Socorro, Yarrick said, adjusting his own mask. Last refuge of the galaxies unwanted. They'd spent 2 weeks evading Zyra's pursuit across the solar system, jumping between automated mining stations and abandoned research outposts. Now, in this sanctuary of outlaws and exiles, they might finally find answers. The contact Yarrick promised turned out to be a former Kaelon geneticist named Riven, whose own beauty modifications had been partially reversed. His face was a startling patchwork of natural and engineered features. The council's finest huntress, Riven mused, studying Vera through augmented eyes. Come to learn the truth about her makers. Can you remove the implant? Vera asked. Yes. But you won't like what happens after. Riven gestured to his own face. These modifications aren't just cosmetic. They're symbiotic. Remove the control implant, and the entire system begins to break down. She'll die? Yarrick stepped forward protectively. No. But her engineered beauty will unravel. Painfully. Riven's expression held genuine sympathy. The council designed it that way. No hunter can simply walk away. Vera thought of the hundreds of missions, the men she'd seduced and discarded. Do it anyway. The procedure took 6 hours. When Vera awoke, the first thing she noticed was silence. The constant hum of the implant was gone. The second was pain. Easy, Yarrick steadied her as she stumbled to a mirror. Her reflection showed the beginning of changes. Patches of her iridescent skin had turned dull, her features slightly asymmetrical. The breakdown will accelerate, Riven warned. But that's not the worst news. Look at this. He displayed genetic scans on a holographic screen. These markers, they're not degradation from Kalon's atmosphere. They're engineered. What do you mean? Your people were never dying, Vera. The Council deliberately damaged your species' reproductive systems. The human DNA they're gathering? It's not for survival. They're building something. Yarrick studied the data. Weapons. Living weapons. The Syndicate wants to combine Kalon adaptability with human resilience. An army of hunters, Vera whispered. Beautiful. Lethal. Unstoppable. Her hands touched her changing face. How many of our people know? Few, Riven said. Most are like you were, loyal servants fighting for a lie. The Council keeps the truth buried in classified genetics archives on Kalon Prime. Not anymore. Yarrick pulled up his own data. While you were unconscious, I decoded more files from the probe. There's a secondary facility. A gene forge on Europa where they're already creating prototypes. Vera's modified vision glitched, beauty protocols failing as her true face emerged. Then that's our target. If we can't reach Kalon Prime, we'll destroy their work at the source. You're in no condition, Yarrick began. My condition is exactly why we have to act now. Vera watched another patch of skin fade to natural tones. Every hunter will end up like this eventually. Used up. Discarded. Unless we stop it. A proximity alarm blared. Security feeds showed Zyra's ship entering Mars orbit. She tracked us, Yarrick growled. No. Vera studied the footage. Look at her flight pattern. She's running too. They'll have activated her implant's kill switch by now. 3 fugitives against an intergalactic syndicate and your planet's leadership. Riven shook his head. I'd say it's suicide, but I've seen crazier plans work in New Socorro. We'll need a ship, Yarrick said. Weapons. A way past Europa's defenses. Vera straightened, ignoring the pain of her transforming body. In the mirror, her reflection was a chaos of beauty and truth, engineered perfection cracking to reveal something far more real. First, she said, we need to save Zyra. Then we'll show her what the Council really is. And then? Her smile was no longer lovely, but it held genuine warmth for the first time. Then we burn their perfect lies to ash. Europa's surface was a maze of crystalline ice, beneath which the Syndicate's geneforge pulsed with sickly light. Vera's deteriorating face was now an advantage, no one would mistake her for a hunter. Beside her, Zyra looked equally transformed, her own beauty falling away like autumn leaves after Riven's procedure. Defense grid mapped, Yarrick reported from their stolen ship's controls. The facility's shielding has a weakness at the thermal vents. If we time it right. We'll have 7 minutes, Zyra interrupted. Her voice was rough, stripped of its engineered allure. Before the backup systems activate. The plan was simple, plant the mutagenic bomb, trigger a cascade failure in the forge's containment systems, escape. The execution would be anything but simple. They breached the facility through a maintenance shaft, their suits protecting them from the bone-crushing pressure of Europa's ocean. Inside, the corridors writhed with bioluminescent guidance strips, a grotesque mirror of Vera's fading abilities. The first lab they encountered stopped them cold. Tanks lined the walls, each containing a floating figure of impossible beauty. Proto-hunters, their genetic structures twisted into living weapons. They're using our sisters, Zyra whispered. The ones who failed their missions. The council said they were rehabilitated. They lied about everything. Vera checked the charge on her plasma rifle. Let's make them pay for it. They fought their way to the central forge, where massive vats of engineered genetic material churned. Yarok worked quickly to plant charges while Vera and Zyra held off security forces. Their deteriorating bodies made combat difficult, but raw fury made up for lost grace. The facility's overseer was a Kaelon Council member, Matriarch Sindri herself. She emerged from her command center like a vision of lethal perfection, the epitome of everything their species had sacrificed in the name of survival. My wayward daughters, Sindri purred. Come to dismantle centuries of progress. You disappoint me. We're not your daughters, Vera snarled. We're your victims. Victims? I gave you perfection. You gave us chains. Made us think beauty was worth any price. Vera's face was almost entirely natural now, marked by lines of pain and determination. But real beauty isn't engineered. It's earned. Like this. She slammed her hand down on the forge's controls, initiating an overload. The mutagenic bomb would ensure nothing in the facility remained viable. You'll die too, Sindri warned as alarms blared. Maybe. But your weapons program dies with us. The explosion began at the facility's core, a chain reaction of unstable genetics and corrupted dreams. As emergency shields slammed down, Vera saw Sindri's perfect features begin to ripple and distort, poetic justice as her own engineered perfection turned against her. They ran through disintegrating corridors, past failing stasis tanks and screaming security forces. The mutagenic wave followed like a cleansing fire, breaking down complex genetic structures into basic components. The ship's autopilot is ready, Yarok called over their suit comms. But we've got company topside. Council ships dropped out of Europa's orbit, weapons charging. But before they could fire, a massive vessel decloaked between them and the moon's surface. Need a lift? Riven's voice crackled through their comms. New Socorro takes care of its own. They reached his ship as the facility collapsed, Europa's ice cracking above the destructive wave. As they broke orbit, Vera watched the council ship scatter, their perfect formation broken by the reality of defeat. The Syndicate will have other facilities, Zyra noted, her transformed face grave. Yes, Vera agreed. But they've lost their most valuable asset. The genetic templates? No. Vera touched her scarred face. The lie. No one will believe in their perfect dream once the truth spreads. Real strength doesn't come from engineered beauty. It comes from choosing who you really are, Yarok finished, taking her hand. Behind them, Europa's surface swirled with chaos as centuries of genetic manipulation broke down into cosmic dust. It was, Vera thought, the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. 1 year after Europa's destruction, Vera stood before the combined council of Earth and Kaelon Prime. Her natural face, marked by the remnants of failed genetic modifications, commanded more attention than her engineered beauty ever had. The evidence is irrefutable, she concluded. The Syndicate's manipulation, the Council's complicity, the weapons program, all of it documented in the GeneForge's backup servers. The human representatives murmured among themselves while the remaining Kaelon Council members sat in stony silence. The truth had cost them dearly. Nearly a third of their leadership had been exposed as Syndicate collaborators. And the DNA archive? Asked the Kaelon Prime Minister, one of the few proven innocent of corruption. Yarok stepped forward. Already public. Every compatible genetic sequence, along with the technology to safely integrate it. No more hunters. No more coercion. Your people can choose their own path to survival. The vote was unanimous. The Hunter program was disbanded. Emergency aid would flow to Kaelon Prime, along with atmospheric restoration technology. In exchange, their genetic engineering advances would be shared under strict ethical oversight. Later, aboard the ship that had become their home, Vera watched Kalon Prime shrink in the viewport. She would not be staying. Too many memories, too many wounds still healing. Having second thoughts? Yarrick asked, joining her. About leaving? No. She touched the scars that marked her transformation. I spent so long being what they made me. I need to discover who I really am. We got a new signal, Zyra announced from the bridge. After Europa, she joined their crew permanently. Uncharted system, 20 light-years out. Initial scans show a compatible biosphere. Riven's colony ships are ready whenever we confirm it's safe, Yarrick added. A fresh start for anyone who wants it. Vera smiled, not the perfect, calculated expression of a hunter, but something real and fierce. Then let's go find it. The universe is bigger than their beautiful cage. The ship's engines hummed to life as they plotted a course into unknown space. Behind them, Kalon Prime began its slow healing. Before them stretched endless possibilities, each one earned rather than engineered. You know, Yarrick said softly, I think you're more beautiful now than when we first met. Vera turned from the viewport, seeing her reflection in his eyes. Beyond the scars and asymmetry, beyond the ghost of synthetic perfection, she recognized something that had been there all along, the beauty of finally, truly being free. That's because now it's real, she replied, taking his hand. Everything is. Their ship accelerated into the darkness between stars, carrying its cargo of broken perfection and hard-won truth. Somewhere ahead lay a world where they could build something new, not perfect, not engineered, but genuine. And in the end, that was all any of them had ever really wanted.